You know, there comes a moment in every person's life when everything falls apart, when the ground beneath your feet seems to crumble, when the people you trusted walk away, when the dreams you held so tightly slip through your fingers like sand. And in that moment, you think it's the end. You think you've failed. You think the universe has abandoned you. But what if I told you that this moment, this painful, heart-wrenching moment, is actually the beginning of your greatest transformation? What if I told you that the soul doesn't grow in comfort but in crisis? What if everything you thought was breaking you was actually making you? See, we live in a world that tells us to avoid pain at all costs. Take a pill for this, numb yourself with that, run away, hide, pretend everything is fine. But the soul doesn't work that way. The soul has its own curriculum, its own lessons, its own tests. And these tests aren't meant to destroy you, they're meant to awaken you. They're meant to strip away everything that isn't really you, so that what remains is pure, authentic, and unshakable. Right now, as you sit here, you might be wondering if you've passed the test. You might be looking back at the wreckage of what was, trying to make sense of it all. You might be asking yourself, was it worth it? Did I learn what I was supposed to learn? Am I different now? And I'm here to tell you that yes, you are different. You're not the same person who entered that storm. You're stronger, you're wiser, you're more aligned with your true self than you've ever been. The first sign that you've passed your soul's most painful test is this: you no longer need external validation to know your worth. Think about that for a moment. There was a time when you looked to others to tell you if you were good enough, smart enough, beautiful enough, successful enough. You needed their approval like you needed air. You shaped yourself into whatever form would get you the love and acceptance you craved. You dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel threatened. You silenced your voice so others wouldn't feel challenged. You abandoned yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. But something happened during your darkest hour. When everyone walked away, when the applause stopped, when the world told you that you had failed, you discovered something remarkable. You discovered that you were still here. You were still breathing. You were still valuable. Not because someone said so, but because you exist. Your worth isn't determined by how many people follow you, like you, or agree with you. Your worth is inherent. It's woven into the fabric of your being. You don't need to earn it or prove it or defend it. It simply is. This is a profound shift. Most people spend their entire lives chasing validation, performing for an audience that will never be satisfied, trying to fill a hole that can only be filled from within. But you've stopped performing. You've stopped seeking approval from people who don't even approve of themselves. You've realized that the only validation that matters is the validation you give yourself. And that's freedom. That's power. That's the mark of someone who has graduated from the school of suffering. The second sign is equally powerful. You've learned to forgive the unforgivable. Now, I'm not talking about saying some nice words or pretending that what happened didn't hurt. I'm talking about a genuine release of the bitterness and resentment that once consumed you. You see, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't hurt them, it hurts you. It keeps you chained to the past, reliving the pain over and over again, giving your power away to people who have moved on with their lives. During your painful test, someone hurt you. Maybe they betrayed you. Maybe they abandoned you. Maybe they lied to you or used you or tried to destroy you. And for a while you carried that hurt like a badge of honor. You told the story over and over, rehearsing the details, building a case against them in your mind. You wanted them to suffer the way you suffered. You wanted justice. You wanted revenge. But then something shifted. You realized that holding on to that anger was destroying you from the inside out. You realized that forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the hook. It's about reclaiming your energy and directing it toward your own growth rather than their punishment. So, you made a choice, a conscious, deliberate choice to let it go. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because you deserved peace. And here's what's beautiful about this. When you forgive, you don't become weak. You become unstoppable. You're no longer dragging the weight of the past behind you. You're no longer defined by what was done to you. You're free to create something new, something beautiful, something that reflects who you really are rather than what happened to you. The third sign that you've passed the test is this: you've stopped trying to control everything. Oh, this is a big one. We spend so much of our lives trying to force outcomes, manipulate situations, and make things go according to our plans. We think we know what's best. We think we have it all figured out. We make our lists and our schedules and our 5-year plans, and then we panic when life doesn't cooperate. We fight against what is, insisting that reality should bend to our will. But your painful test taught you something crucial. You're not in control, and you never were. That job you thought you couldn't live without, it wasn't your job to keep. That relationship you thought defined you, it wasn't yours to hold on to. That version of your life that looked so perfect on paper, it wasn't the life your soul came here to live. Everything you tried to control slipped through your fingers, and in that loss, you found something unexpected. You found surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving in to the flow of life rather than fighting against it. It means trusting that there's an intelligence at work that's far greater than your limited perspective. It means understanding that sometimes what feels like a disaster is actually a divine intervention. That rejection was protection. That failure was redirection. That ending was a new beginning in disguise. Now you move through life with your hands open rather than clenched. You make plans, but you hold them loosely. You work hard, but you don't attach your identity to outcomes. You trust the process. You trust the timing. You trust that what's meant for you will not pass you by, and what's not meant for you couldn't stay no matter how hard you tried to hold it. The fourth sign is about your relationship with fear. You're no longer paralyzed by it. Fear used to run your life. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of what people might think, fear of not being enough, fear of being too much. Fear kept you small, kept you silent, kept you stuck in situations that suffocated your soul. You made decisions based on avoiding pain rather than pursuing joy. You chose safety over authenticity. You said yes when you meant no, and no when you meant yes, all because you were afraid. But when you went through your painful test, you faced your worst fears and survived. The thing you thought would destroy you didn't. You lost what you couldn't imagine losing, and you're still here. You were rejected, abandoned, criticized, judged, and you're still standing. You discovered that you're far more resilient than you ever gave yourself credit for. You learned that fear is just a feeling, not a fact. It's information, not instruction. Now, when fear shows up, you acknowledge it. You feel it, but you don't let it make your decisions. You do the thing anyway. You speak your truth even when your voice shakes. You pursue your dreams even when the outcome is uncertain. You set boundaries even when it might upset people. You choose yourself even when it disappoints others. You've realized that the only thing more frightening than taking a risk is living a life of regret, wondering what could have been if only you'd been brave enough to try. The fifth sign is beautiful in its simplicity. You've found peace in solitude. There was a time when being alone terrified you. You filled every moment with noise, with people, with distractions, because silence forced you to confront yourself. And frankly, you didn't like what you saw, so you stayed busy. You stayed connected. You stayed anywhere but present with your own thoughts and feelings. But your painful test often includes a period of isolation, not because you're being punished, but because you're being prepared. You need time away from the noise of the world to hear the whispers of your soul. You need space away from other people's opinions to form your own. You need solitude to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. At first, it's uncomfortable. You feel lonely. You feel forgotten. You wonder if you'll ever connect with anyone again. But gradually, something magical happens. You start to enjoy your own company. You realize that you're actually pretty interesting. You have thoughts worth thinking, dreams worth pursuing, a perspective worth honoring. You don't need someone else to complete you because you're already whole. Now, solitude isn't something to fear. It's something to cherish. It's where you recharge, where you create, where you connect with the truest part of yourself. You're no longer desperate for company because you're no longer running from yourself. You can sit in a quiet room with your own thoughts and feel at peace. That's a superpower that most people never develop. The sixth sign is about your purpose. You've stopped living someone else's dream and started living your own. For years, maybe decades, you followed a script that was written by someone else. Your parents, your teachers, your culture, your society. They told you what success looks like. They told you what you should want. They told you what path you should take. And you tried. You really tried. You checked all the boxes. You did all the right things. But something always felt off. Something always felt empty. Your painful test shattered that script. It ripped away the life you were trying to build according to someone else's blueprint. And in that destruction, you found liberation. You realized that you don't have to live up to anyone's expectations but your own. You don't have to pursue a career that impresses people if it doesn't fulfill you. You don't have to maintain a lifestyle that looks good from the outside if it feels hollow on the inside. You don't have to be who they want you to be. You get to be who you are. Now you're guided by an inner compass rather than external pressure. You ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does this light me up? Does this feel true? And you make decisions based on those answers rather than on what will get you approval. You might make less money, but you have more joy. You might have fewer followers, but you have more authenticity. You might confuse the people who thought they knew you, but you finally know yourself. This is when life becomes an adventure rather than an obligation. You're not trying to live up to some impossible standard anymore. You're simply expressing the unique gift that is you. And that's what you came here to do. Not to be a copy of someone else. Not to fulfill someone else's dream. But to be the fullest, truest, most authentic version of yourself. That's your purpose. That's your gift to the world. The seventh and final sign is this. You've developed an unshakable faith in something bigger than yourself. Now, I'm not talking about religion necessarily, though it can include that. I'm talking about a bone-deep knowing that you're not alone in this universe. That you're being guided, supported, and loved by a force that wants your highest good. Some people call it God, some call it the universe, some call it source or spirit or higher power. The name doesn't matter. What matters is the relationship. Before your painful test, you might have had faith when things were going well, but when things fell apart, that faith crumbled too. You felt abandoned by the universe. You questioned everything. You wondered if anyone or anything was really looking out for you. But as you moved through the darkness, you started to notice something. Little signs, unexpected help, perfect timing, synchronicities that couldn't be explained by coincidence. You realized that even in your darkest hour, you were being held. Even when you couldn't see the path, you were being led. And now you know that there's a benevolent intelligence at work in your life. You know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You know that everything, and I mean everything, is conspiring in your favor. Even the painful things, especially the painful things, because those are the things that crack you open and let the light in. This faith changes everything. You don't panic when things don't go according to plan because you trust the plan that's bigger than your own. You don't collapse when you face obstacles because you know they're part of your path, not in the way of it. You don't feel hopeless when you can't see the next step because you trust that the next step will be revealed in perfect timing. You move through life with a quiet confidence that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Let me tell you something about these 7 signs. They're not just markers that you've passed the test. They're the gifts you received by passing the test. See, you entered that painful experience as one person, and you emerged as someone completely different. You were refined by fire. You were purified by pain. You were transformed by trials. And what emerged is the real you, the strong you, the wise you, the awakened you. But here's what you need to understand. Passing one test doesn't mean there won't be others. Life is a series of lessons, and your soul is an eternal student. There will be more challenges, more obstacles, more moments when everything falls apart. But here's the difference. Now you know you can handle it. You have evidence. You have experience. You have wisdom that only comes from walking through fire and coming out on the other side. And each time you face a new challenge, you'll face it with more grace, more faith, more trust. Because you'll remember what you learned. You'll remember that breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. You'll remember that the caterpillar must dissolve completely before it can become a butterfly. You'll remember that the darkest hour really is just before dawn. So, if you're in the middle of a painful test right now, let me tell you what you need to hear. You're going to make it. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know the pain is so intense that you can barely breathe. I know you're tired of being strong. I know you're exhausted from fighting. I know you want to give up. But please, please don't. Because you're closer to your breakthrough than you realize. The dawn is coming. The lesson is almost learned. The test is almost passed. And when you emerge, and you will emerge, you'll look back on this time and realize it was the best thing that ever happened to you. Not because it felt good, it didn't, but because it made you who you're meant to be. It stripped away everything false so that only the truth remained. It broke you open so that you could be put back together in a way that serves your highest purpose. You see, the soul doesn't need more comfort, it needs more truth. It doesn't need more possessions, it needs more presence. It doesn't need more success, it needs more substance. And pain, as uncomfortable as it is one of the most effective teachers of these things. Pain forces you to be present. You can't numb yourself or distract yourself when you're really hurting. You have to be here, now, feeling what you're feeling. And in that presence, you find truth. You find yourself. Think about the people who inspire you most, the ones who radiate wisdom and peace and strength. Do you think they got that way by avoiding pain? No. They got that way by walking through it. They got that way by facing their demons and their fears and their heartbreaks and refusing to let those things destroy them. They got that way by doing exactly what you're doing right now. They survived, they learned, they transformed, and so will you. Let me share something with you about transformation. It's not a one-time event. It's not like you pass the test, get your certificate, and you're done. Transformation is ongoing. It's a spiral, not a straight line. You'll revisit old lessons at new levels. You'll face familiar challenges with fresh eyes. And each time, you'll go deeper. Each time, you'll understand more. Each time, you'll become more of who you truly are. And that's the whole point, isn't it? This life isn't about accumulating things or impressing people or checking boxes. It's about remembering who you are beneath all the conditioning and the programming and the stories you've been told. You're not just a body walking around trying to survive. You're a soul having a human experience. You're a spiritual being temporarily housed in physical form. And your purpose is to express that divine essence in your own unique way. Every painful test is an invitation to remember this truth. When the world strips away your titles and your possessions and your relationships and your plans, what remains? You remain. The essential you. The indestructible you. The eternal you. And that's what you're learning to trust. Not the external circumstances that constantly change, but the internal essence that never does. So, when you look at those 7 signs, you're really looking at 7 aspects of awakening. You're awakening to your inherent worth. You're awakening to the power of forgiveness. You're awakening to the peace of surrender. You're awakening to courage over fear. You're awakening to the beauty of solitude. You're awakening to your authentic purpose. You're awakening to divine guidance. These aren't just nice concepts. They're lived experiences that change the trajectory of your entire life. And here's something beautiful. When you pass your soul's most painful test, you don't just transform yourself. You become a light for others who are still in the darkness. Your story becomes medicine for someone else's pain. Your strength becomes inspiration for someone else's struggle. Your transformation becomes permission for someone else to transform. You become living proof that it's possible to survive the unsurvivable, to heal the unhealable, to transform pain into purpose. This is the gift of your pain. It's not random. It's not meaningless. It's not a punishment. It's a calling. You're being called to a higher way of being. You're being called to step into your power. You're being called to fulfill your purpose. And that calling often comes wrapped in crisis, because that's what it takes to shake us out of our comfortable complacency and force us to grow. Think about it this way. If everything in your life was perfect, if you never faced any challenges, if you never experienced any pain, would you grow? Would you evolve? Would you discover the depths of your strength and wisdom and resilience? Probably not. You'd stay comfortable, you'd stay surface level, you'd stay asleep. But your soul didn't come here to sleep. It came here to wake up. And sometimes that waking up feels like a rude awakening. But once you're awake, once you've seen the truth, once you've experienced this transformation, you can't go back. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't return to the person you were before, because that person doesn't exist anymore. They died in the fire, and from their ashes you were born. The new you, the transformed you, the authentic you. Now, I want to talk about what happens after you pass the test, because this is where a lot of people get confused. They think that once they've passed the test, life becomes easy. They think the pain is over, and now it's all sunshine and rainbows. But that's not quite how it works. Passing the test doesn't mean you never face challenges again. It means you face them differently. You face them with the wisdom and strength and faith you've developed. Life after the test is still life. There will still be ups and downs. There will still be moments of joy and moments of sorrow. There will still be people who hurt you and situations that challenge you. But the difference is this: you don't take it so personally anymore. You don't identify with the drama. You don't collapse when things don't go your way. You stay centered. You stay grounded. You stay connected to that unshakable truth you discovered in the fire. And you start to live from a different place. Instead of living from fear, you live from love. Instead of living from lack, you live from abundance. Instead of living from separation, you live from connection. These aren't just words. They're states of being that fundamentally change how you experience reality. When you live from love, you see love everywhere. When you live from abundance, you recognize abundance all around you. When you live from connection, you feel connected to everything and everyone. This is what spiritual teachers mean when they talk about enlightenment or awakening or liberation. They're not talking about floating on a cloud or never having problems. They're talking about this shift in perspective that changes everything. They're talking about seeing life as it really is, rather than through the distorted lens of fear and ego and conditioning. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to be perfect to experience this. You don't have to meditate for hours every day or live in a monastery or give away all your possessions. You just have to be willing. Willing to face yourself honestly, willing to feel your feelings fully, willing to let go of what no longer serves you, willing to trust the process, willing to keep going even when it's hard. That willingness is what carried you through your painful test, and that willingness is what will carry you through everything else. Because at the end of the day, life is not about avoiding pain. It's about being willing to feel whatever you feel and grow from it. It's about being willing to lose what needs to be lost so you can find what needs to be found. It's about being willing to die to who you were so you can be born into who you're meant to be. Let me tell you about the power of your story. Right now, you might look at what you've been through and see only tragedy. You might see only loss and pain and hardship. But I want you to shift your perspective for a moment. What if that story is your greatest asset? What if that pain is your most powerful teacher? What if those tears watered the seeds of your purpose? Your story matters, not because of what happened to you, but because of what happened in you. Not because of what you lost, but because of what you found. Not because of how you fell, but because of how you rose. And when you own your story, when you integrate your pain, when you alchemize your struggles into strength, you become unstoppable. People will feel it when they meet you. They won't be able to put their finger on it, but they'll sense something different about you, something solid, something real, something that can't be shaken. Because you've been tested, you've been refined, you've been transformed, and that transformation radiates from you like light. This is your time, not to play small, not to hide, not to pretend you're less than you, or so others feel comfortable. This is your time to shine, to speak your truth, to live your purpose, to be the person you discovered yourself to be in that fire. Because the world needs what you have to offer. The world needs your light. The world needs your story. The world needs you, and you need you too. You need to honor yourself for having the courage to face what you faced. You need to celebrate yourself for surviving what you survived. You need to love yourself for being willing to transform, because not everyone does. Not everyone has the courage to face their pain and grow from it. Many people stay stuck in victimhood, blaming others, repeating patterns, refusing to take responsibility for their own healing. But not you. You chose differently. You chose growth. You chose transformation. You chose life. So as you move forward, remember what you've learned. Remember that your worth is inherent, not earned. Remember that forgiveness sets you free. Remember that control is an illusion. Remember that fear is just a feeling. Remember that solitude is sacred. Remember that your purpose is yours alone. Remember that you're divinely guided. These aren't just platitudes. They're the hard-won wisdom of someone who has walked through fire and emerged on the other side. And when the next test comes, and it will come, you'll be ready. Not because it won't hurt, it might. Not because it won't challenge you, it will. But because you know now that you can handle it. You know that the pain is temporary, but the growth is permanent. You know that the breakdown is just the beginning of the breakthrough. You know that you're stronger than anything life throws at you. This is the truth that your painful test revealed. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are powerful beyond measure. You are resilient beyond belief. You are loved beyond comprehension. And you are here for a reason. Your life has meaning. Your pain has purpose. Your story matters. So stand tall, walk with confidence, speak with conviction, love with an open heart, live with courage, because you've earned it. You've passed the test. You've transformed the pain. You've found yourself. And now you get to live from that truth. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but authentically, courageously, purposefully. This is your life. This is your moment. This is your time. And you are ready to be who you came here to be, ready to do what you came here to do, ready to love how you came here to love, ready to live fully, freely, authentically. The test is behind you, the lesson is learned, the transformation is complete. Well, as complete as it ever gets, because growth is ongoing. But you're different now, you're awake now, you're free now, and that changes everything. So go forth and live. Live big, live bold, live true. Live from your soul rather than your fears. Live from your purpose rather than your programming. Live from your heart rather than your head, because you've earned that right, you've paid the price. You've done the work, you've passed the test, and the world is waiting for who you've become. You know what's interesting? Most people go through their entire lives waiting for permission. Permission to be happy, permission to follow their dreams, permission to set boundaries, permission to be themselves. They wait for someone to give them a green light that never comes. But you don't need permission anymore. The painful test you passed taught you that waiting for permission is just another form of prison. You're the only authority you need to answer to. You're the only one who gets to decide what your life looks like. This realization is revolutionary because it means you stop being a passenger in your own life and become the driver. You stop asking, "Is this okay?" and start asking, "Is this true for me?" You stop seeking consensus and start trusting your inner knowing. And yes, this will make some people uncomfortable. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than everyone else. Let them talk. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your authenticity is not up for debate. What you've learned through your pain is that people-pleasing is a form of self-betrayal. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon yourself. Every time you shrink yourself to make others comfortable, you dishonor the person you've worked so hard to become. And you can't do that anymore. Not after what you've been through. Not after what you've learned. Not after who you've become. Here's something they don't tell you about transformation. It's lonely sometimes. Not because you're alone, but because you're operating on a different frequency now. The conversations that used to engage you feel shallow. The activities that used to excite you feel empty. The relationships that used to fulfill you feel constraining. You've outgrown certain people, certain places, certain versions of yourself. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's necessary. Growth requires space. You can't plant new seeds in soil that's already full. You can't build a new foundation on top of old rubble. You have to clear the ground. You have to make room. And sometimes that means saying goodbye to people and things you once thought you couldn't live without. But here's the truth. Anything that can't grow with you must go. Anything that requires you to stay small doesn't deserve to stay in your life. And as you create this space, something miraculous happens. New people start to appear. People who match your new energy. People who celebrate your growth rather than resent it. People who challenge you to keep expanding rather than pressure you to contract. These are your soul family. These are the ones who were waiting for you to become who you needed to be so they could find you. The universe has a way of orchestrating these divine connections once you're vibrating at your true frequency. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to chase anyone. You simply become yourself, and the right people are magnetized to you. It's one of the most beautiful rewards of passing your soul's test. You get to build a life and relationships based on authenticity rather than pretense. Let's talk about something crucial, the difference between healing and cured. You might think that passing the test means you're cured, that the wounds are gone, that you'll never hurt again, but that's not quite right. Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls you. You've integrated the experience. You've learned from the pain. You've grown because of it. but the scars remain, and that's beautiful. Those scars are proof of your survival. They're evidence of your strength. They're roadmaps of where you've been and reminders of where you're going. Your scars make you relatable. They make you real. They make you someone others can connect with because they see their own struggles reflected in yours. If you were perfect, if you had never suffered, if you had never fallen, how could you possibly understand someone else's pain? How could you offer genuine compassion? How could you be a beacon of hope? Your wounds, once healed, become your greatest ministry. There's something else that happens after you pass the test. You develop what I call spiritual discernment. You can sense energy now in ways you couldn't before. You can feel when something is right or wrong for you before your mind even processes why. You can detect insincerity from a mile away. You can recognize manipulation even when it's wrapped in pretty words. You've been through too much to be fooled by surface appearances. You see through the masks people wear because you've removed your own. This discernment protects you. It keeps you from repeating old patterns. It keeps you from investing your energy in people and situations that don't serve your highest good. Some might call it being jaded or cynical, but it's not. It's being wise. It's honoring the lessons you've learned. It's refusing to betray yourself again just to make someone else comfortable. And with this discernment comes a profound sense of peace about who you are and what you want. You're not confused anymore about your values. You're not uncertain about your boundaries. You're not wishy-washy about your standards. You know what you will and won't accept. You know what aligns with your soul and what doesn't. You know who you are, and you're not apologizing for it. This clarity is magnetic. It draws opportunities to you. It opens doors you didn't even know existed. It creates synchronicities that feel like magic, but are actually just the universe responding to your clear intention. When you know who you are and what you want, life has a way of delivering it to you. Not always in the way you expected, not always on your timeline, but always in perfect alignment with your highest good. Think about how you move through challenges now compared to before. Before the test, you would panic, you would catastrophize, you would assume the worst and brace for impact. But now you breathe. You center yourself. You remember that you've been through worse and survived. You trust that this too is part of your path. You ask yourself, what is this here to teach me? Rather than, why is this happening to me? That shift in perspective changes everything. You've become someone who looks for the lesson in every experience, who seeks the growth in every challenge, who finds the blessing in every disguise. This doesn't mean you're happy about difficulties. It means you're wise enough to know that resistance creates suffering while acceptance creates peace. You've learned to dance with life rather than fight against it. And this wisdom ripples out into every area of your life. Your work becomes more meaningful because you're bringing your authentic self to it. Your relationships become more fulfilling because you're showing up as who you really are. Your health improves because you're no longer carrying the weight of pretense and resentment. Your creativity flows because you're no longer blocked by fear and self-doubt. Everything gets better when you get real. So here you stand, on the other side of your soul's most painful test, forever changed. You're not the person you were, and thank goodness for that. That person was living half a life, going through the motions, hiding their light, playing small. But you're fully alive now. You're awake. You're authentic. You're free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you could ever give yourself. It's the gift that keeps on giving, because once you taste true freedom, you can never go back to prison. Once you experience genuine authenticity, you can never return to pretense. Once you know who you really are, you can never forget again. This is your new reality. This is your earned wisdom. This is your beautiful, transformed life. And it's only just beginning.